So we are live right now. So starting now. So very good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar organized by Jadavpur University Alternative Economic Society. Gender biases have long been a critical disease faced particularly in the developing countries. This attitude impedes the fundamental right of each individual, that is education. Indian education system in general and West Bengal education system in particular have been significantly affected by gender biasness. This makes a great opening in the field of developmental economics research. JU Alternative Economic Society is fortunate to have Dr. Chayanika Mitra as a guest speaker for the topic Gender Biased Education in West Bengal. Dr. C. Mitra is a professor in economics in department at St. Xavier's University, Kolkata. Her area of specialization includes applied econometrics, time series forecasting, and data analytics. She teaches in the field of financial and developmental economics in St. Xavier's University, Kolkata. Dr. C. Mitra did her bachelor's and master's from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and got her PhD from ISI, Kolkata. Let's explore the amalgamated effects in West Bengal, which led to the gender biased education system. If you have any question, feel free to write in the chat box. We will take it up at the Q&A round at the end. Over to you, Dr. Mitra.
Thank you, Shakko. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and thank you, the members of Jadavpur University Alternative Economic Society, for inviting me for this webinar. Well, I would like to start from the very concept of gender. I mean, gender is considered to be socially constructed expectations and roles for men and women. Now, now comes the gender bias. So, gender bias is basically the act of favoring a man over a woman in any situation. So, you can see that from the definition that this is a very sociological issue. Now, we are all economic students. So, what is the implication of chasing this sociological issue here? So, the most important thing is that I would like to mention two papers. One is by Stephen Klassen, in the year 2002, where he had mentioned that gender inequality in any economy reduces the per capita GDP growth by per annum GDP growth by 0.4 to 0.9%. Similarly, John Dress in 1995, he had mentioned that gender inequality in education creates a poverty trap through the differences in earnings between men and women. Now, all these studies are just a tip of an iceberg. So, there exists a vast literature that looks into the issue from different angles. Now, from this point of view, I would like to mention two important things. Like in India, a woman typically earns 25% less than a man, and in any job category. Now, this gap arises from three important reasons. One is occupational segregation, that is very much prominent in agricultural sectors in rural areas, where the paid female participation in labor market is very less. Another important thing is social norms and cultural norms, which which forces a woman to stop her participation in labor market once she gets married off, or and specifically once she becomes mother. Apart from all these points, I would like to mention the most important point, that is education and training. In India, specifically West Bengal also, West Bengal is not an exception, where a girl is considered to be a future homemaker and a boy is considered as a future bread earner. As a result of that differential attitude of parents, they invest more on a boy's education compared to a girl's education. Another important thing is that the parents aim to maximize the income of their children. So, given the existence of gender gap in education, it is expected from from a parent's point of view that a girl would like to marry off a educated man. Similarly, the boy would like to marry off a less educated girl. So as a result of that, they find it much more important to invest more on a boy's education compared to their daughter's education. So all these are all the consequences of gender gap in education. Now, in West Bengal, there are two important things that comes up. One is important thing is that in West Bengal, the around 20% of female or girls belonging to the age group 6 to 14 years, they are out of school. Second, West Bengal comes fifth in terms of child marriage at early age, after Bihar, Jharkhand, Tamil Nadu, all the states. Now, so you can see that in West Bengal also the situation is not satisfactory. So even if you find the implementation of Kanyashri Prokolpo, Sarvashikha Abhijan, RT Act 2005, all these things they have their own impact. But even after that, the performance of these policies they are not satisfactory in West Bengal. So I would like to mention two important channels through which the gender bias comes in education. One is school participation and second is expenditure. In terms of school participation, let me mention few points. Now, according to RT Act, every child from the age group 6 to 14 years, they should be provided free elementary education from any government bodies. Now, if you check, you will find that education is not free in that sense. When once a child starts to go to school, it requires some expenditure regarding buying books, regarding buying stationeries, photocopy charges, tuition fees, all these things. You can, due to RT Act, the government schools cannot charge any fees, but there exists some other the items. There exists some situation where it requires some monetary investment. Now, from that point of view, the differential attitude of parents comes into picture. In terms of school participation, it has been found that girls are more susceptible to the dropout problem. That is very prominent. Naila Kabir, in her report, that is based on that is it's a global monitoring report for education for all. It was funded by UNESCO in 2003. It had mentioned that almost every or 50 girls of every 100 boys are out of school in West Bengal. So you can see the situation is so adverse, and there are some specific factors that influences these high school dropouts in education. There are two important things. One is the institutional or infrastructural problems, and second is the household level factors. In terms of household level factors, two important points comes up. One is mother's education. It has been found that if mother is educated, that means if her education is higher than graduation, then that increases the female enrollment by 4 times compared to father's education. So again, when we are talking in terms of mother's education, that means that we are talking about a girl's education. Another important point is that when household size increases, the probability of a girl child to drop out increases than that of a boy child. And there is a tendency that if you have multiple number of siblings, then you it is very it is very important practice. It is very rampant practice, specifically in rural areas in West Bengal, that the girls will be engaged in domestic activities. It can be household chores. It can be looking after their younger siblings, and boys, they are allowed to go to school, they are allowed to continue their education. So the households where the number of girl children is high compared to boy child, in those households the female dropout problem is very high. Another important problem that comes into the picture is, if mother is engaged in labor market, in paid labor market, then that also reduces the female dropout problem substantially. That means that if the mother is working, that also reduces the female dropout problem substantially. Now, another point that comes up is the second point, that is the institutional factors. Here, I would like to mention that the Department of Education and Elementary Department of Elementary Education and Literacy Rate, they had published a report in 2013 where it was mentioned that the West Bengal comes second in terms of the number of government schools lacking proper well functioning toilets. So you can find that it can apart from economic constraints, domestic constraints that both the boy child and a girl child faces while going to school, a girl child faces another hurdle, which is called the female specific reasons. For that, school need to play a very important role, but unfortunately, schools are not able to play that role because of infrastructural barriers. Westwing in specific, another report that comes up, that is conducted by Pratichi Trust in 2017, that dirty toilets and the lack of female teachers, that is very common picture in schools in rural areas in West Bengal. So as a result of that, girl students, they find it very dangerous to go to school. Similarly, parents also find it difficult and dangerous to continue their girl child's education once they cross the age of 12. So you can see that there are lot of factors that keeps that forces a girl child to drop out. Another most important problem, that is marriage at early age. Most of the cases is in rural West Bengal, girls get married off at the average age of 15 to 16. So you will find once the girl was studying, and suddenly once the parents have found a very suitable groom, she gets married off. And after marriage, it is you will find hardly that the girl is continuing her studies. It is very uncommon. So so all these factors are there, and these factors are very important in terms of school participation in below class 10 level. So another thing that is very important, like in India, the education system has two important sections. One is a below class 10 level, another is in above class 10 level. In below class 10 level, you will find that all these dropout problem, these the school hello,
Audible.
school
You continue.
facilities, hello.
It's audible. You continue. You continue.
Okay. The school level problems, all these problems are very much prominent in below class 10 level. In above class 10 level, the choice of subject stream comes into the picture. So here I would like to mention that there are broadly three streams: arts, science, and commerce. And again, you will find that the cost of studying science is highest, followed by commerce and arts. So in West Bengal, it has been found that if there is a general tendency among female students to study arts in above class 10 level. So there might be two reasons. One, as because the cost of studying that stream is least, so parents might influence their girl child to continue their studies by taking the stream arts. Another possibility might be that the girl is interested to study arts. So for that, we have conducted a counterfactual model where it has been found that if a female student were provided similar privileges like a male student, then there is a substantial shift from art stream to study to science stream. So you can find that it is not due to the fact that a girl child is willing to study arts. There are certain barriers, expenditure wise barriers. So, as a result of that, the girl child is forced to study arts in some situations. So, these things are coming up. Now, another point that comes that is very important. Like parents find it's a second investment for a girl child's education because they know that the girl child has to be married off, and for that, so that is the most important and that is the essential mandatory investment from a parent's point of view. So as a result of that, expenditure on girl child's education is an additional monetary burden for them, for which forces them not to send their girl child to school. Another important thing that in rural areas that happens that if a girl gets mm, highly educated, then it becomes very hard for their parents to find a suitable groom for that girl child. So all these social norms that forces a girl that creates the gender bias in education. Apart from that, you can it will now I would like to come to the I mean what is the return of education, what is the return of getting educated. Now in monetary terms, in you can see that the the more you will get educated, the wage payment that you will get, that would be higher. So here comes the labor market scenario in India. So critically, you will find that the women get employed in labor market, but once they married off, once they become mother, they have to stop their participation in the labor market. Parents also know that. So they find that even if their daughter gets job after becoming educated, that is not permanent. So they know that it is very temporary. After getting married out, they have to stop going to their workforce. So that is due to the lack of flexibility that the women face in the workforce in the labor market through inflexible maternity leave system or not so flexible, stringent time framework of working culture, all these things. So, so apart from that, so all these points they create they create a stringent structure that that forces a parent not to spend more on a girl child's education. Another important thing is that, well, what is the I mean, just look at the impact of Kanyashri. Like in Kanyashri, the structure of Kanyashri is like that you will get a monetary benefit after a certain age. Okay? So even after ensuring that you will get a certain monetary benefit, and monthly also you will get a certain benefit. So are we able to ensure that the all the girl children belonging to that specific age group are attending the school? It's not. So the major reason behind this is education. It is very different from any buying any food article, buying any essential article. It is very different. You need to have the tendency to get educated. You need to have the tendency to pursue education. For that, you need the monetary support. So we need to educate our girl child in such a way so that they can have that attitude to continue, they can have that courage to continue their education. That is very important. Even after ensuring them some monetary benefits, we need to make education available to them. So for that, it might be possible that in rural areas, what happens, the schools are very far off. So it is also a prominent result that parents find it difficult and dangerous to send their girl child to school. So what we can do, we can we can make live streaming, or we can make the nearest schools classes, ongoing classes available to those girl children who are not able to go to school. So from that, they would be able to get some idea about what is school, what's happening, how to learn something about that. So apart from that, we need to encourage the girl child to go for some vocational trainings, some 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 trainings, some skill development trainings that can make them much more work to get work in labor market. In that sense, once they get employed in labor market, they will get some bargaining power with them. As a result of that, once they get married off, they will know they can make their own girl child to make them more educated, to spend their own hours, to spend their education. Because it has been found that if mother has higher bargaining power in a specific in a household, then she definitely spends more on a girl child's education. So, in other words, in the households where husband has higher bargaining power, in those households, the expenditure on boys' education is always higher than that of the girls' education. But in the reverse situation, when the mother here has higher bargaining power, or in the households where female is the head, in those households there is no case of gender bias. So you can see that the mother does not differentiate between a boy child education and a girl child education. So if we can make the girl child employable, if we can make the girl child monetarily sound, from this point of views, from these ways, we can make our future girl children educated also. So these are the most important points that I have mentioned. So apart from that, uh, well, yeah, another thing that is, I mean, apart from all this kind of institutional infrastructures problem and all these things, we need to, uh, what should I say? We need to make parents also realize that it's not that the girl is not only there to marry off; they can be also future great earner, because that is due to the cultural, the what should I say, that is due to the cultural framework that India has from a very long period. So due to that thing, so there is always it is always a it's a belief. It has become a belief that if you are parents of a if you are a parent of a girl child, then you need to think about her marriage. It is not so. So that is we need to do like this.
Are you done? Hello.
Hello, hi Shakwa.
Yeah, are you done
Hello.
with your the, the
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
you wanted to say?
I'm.
Okay, okay. Great. Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, it's audible. It's audible. My voice is audible to you.
Okay.
My voice is audible.
Yes. You are audible.
Yeah. So, like, it was a very enriching webinar. Like, coming to the your question answer round. So, my first question is that, like, if you
Yeah.
read Joyati Ghosh, like, she's the professor in JNU, like, her paper in 2001, like, over there, she mentioned that in the late 1980s and then early 1990s, like, there was around a feminization in export oriented industry. Right, so a lot of women, like around 80% of the women in the rural India, like ventured into that export oriented industry. So, like, did that venturing, like entering that job market, had a effect in that education of the women, education of female that they were having, like that their children, like it did affect, like that mother entering into the job market, like increasing their wage, like did it motivate the children back at home to join school?
Yeah. I mean, there is a. It was a famous paper. I mean, by Geeta Gandhi Kingdom. It was in her papers like in 2005, 2013, 2008. She had clearly mentioned that if mother is working, and if mother is specifically if mother is engaged in wage paid uh, works, in these cases, the she always tries to spend her earnings on her children's well-being. So now, if you can find the children's well-being comes from nutrition level, their education, medical, all this stuff, from these kind of things, from these kind of activities. Now, since education is also one component, it has been found that she also spends more on her children's education. Now, when so another literature that comes into the picture, that is called the collective household model. In collective household models, what happens, like when you have a typical family structure, like husband, wife, and their children, typical nuclear family structure. In these households, the if the woman is working, then her bargaining power becomes at par with her husband. So as a result of that, she also has the decision making power. So as a result of that, when the father discriminates between a boy child and a girl child, she compensates by the girl child by spending out of her own wage payment. So that is why when a female is when a woman is engaged in any labor market, and if she is wage earner, then in that case that definitely benefits her girl child's education also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, coming to the second question is that, so how did the midday meal scheme help in shortening the gap of the gender biasness, especially in West Bengal and other states? Like, if you can mention, it would be very good. Like the midday meal scheme.
See, midday meal scheme basically it basically is it's a scheme that breaches the the gap, the insufficient level of nutrition that a child faces. So that means that when you are going to school, that so parents find it an additional spending on the students, on the children for their education, apart from their spending on their food. So schools are artificially supplementing their nutrition level by providing them meals at free of cost. So from that indirectly benefits the parents by lowering their cost of spending, their cost of acquiring food articles for their children. So that cost, that money that they have extra, they can spend on their education. But what happens, like, it is not that much clear, the channel is not that much clear, that the money that they get by not spending on their children's food supplies, as because it was already financed by their schools, so they might find they can use that money in other areas apart from the child's education. So that is very important, because it is not clear, like, how to I mean you cannot define, if you increase, but it is also clear that will not, if there is midday meal, that will not mitigate the gender bias, because it might happen that if they have, the parents will likely to spend more on that boy's education than that of a girl's education. Yeah, thank you.
The question. So it states that, ma'am, we know that a girl student who is enrolled in a Kanyasri scheme gets an amount of rupees 25,000 after finishing her 12th standard. Does that amount of money that the girl uses to getting married, like, does it family uses that amount of lump sum amount of money to, make in the marriage purpose of that girl, or does it stop, like, uses for further continuation in education?
Yeah, that is that is very important question, because recently, the NSSO data that we have till now, it is only in the year 2014. So Kanyashri has been implemented in the year 2013. So in order to get its effect, in order to know its effect, so we need to look at what's happening, the latest data that is there in 2017, which is not available right now. But one thing it can be said that, again, since you, when see, just imagine a situation like, you are a class 2 pass out. Okay, so y- your you have got 25,000 rupees. Okay, so you don't have, in India you don't have that much say, that much power on your own money, right, to spend. So you might, it is not it might be possible that parents are forcing their daughters to marry off, to get married off by using that money. It is possible. But in some cases we are helping some of the students, so those who are not going for higher studies, but they are trying to open up their own shop. Even if they are not getting involved in education system, even if they are not continuing their education, but still they are having some opportunity to earn money. So from that point of view, Kanyashri is more helping the a woman to have her own bargaining power. Even if you make it, even if you have a fixed deposit of 25,000 in your name, that is also giving you a bargaining power. That is that is the take on me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I have another question. So, how do you see that the gender biasness in a higher education, especially in a research-oriented, suppose a PhD or a post-graduation in West Bengal? Like, how do you see that the gender biases has been framed in that particular age group in that education system? Unable to get you, like, the question.
Okay. So yeah, yeah. That means, you see, in post graduation or in PhD, all in these kind of cases, what happens, like, most of the girls at that age, if you look at the most of the girls at that age, they get, after post graduation, they get married off. So you will find that even if they are continuing their study, that is very rare. Okay. And another important thing is that uh, in that is, I think, stream specific, because you will find that in science streams or in other streams, the uh, concentration of girls is low, but in if you go for art streams, and if the girl has that capacity to continue, that is very there you will find some a good number of female students are there. But again, if you look at the percentage, that is very low. I mean, if I think it's 0.03% of the entire female population, that female population who have completed their plus 2, that for 0.03% of that, I think, engaged in post graduation, and further in PhD it becomes 0.01%. So you can find that 1 in 100 are there in in PhD and post graduation, 3 in 100. So yeah, there exists that kind of enrollment, there that difference in that enrollment. Yeah, thank you.
Like another question is that suppose if you want to have a comparative study between in West Bengal especially, like the left government and the TMC
Mhm.
government, like how is the gender biasness been shaped in both of the regime? Has that been improved in the TMC government? Because we saw that in few educational schemes are being implemented over here, like as the same that left government regime has been continuing so far.
Well, mm, I think it is not the right time to talk about this thing, because again I mentioned that the report card of Kanyashri will be visible in the latest round of NSSO data, which will be coming in the year 2020 end, 2020 end. So in that, Kanyashri was implemented in the year 2013. So you will get 7 years. So from that you will be able to know the report cards of these two ruling parties. But one thing that is very important, that which is very visible, that in left in Trinamool government's ruling, you will find then you will find that the girl students were provided cycles to travel from their houses to schools. So that is, I think, very important, because schools are there, but the students were not able to reach out to that school in order to attend the classes. So for that, yes, it is very that is in some sense helping them out. But in order to get the ID, get the report card of Kanashri, I think we need to wait for the data set. After that, we would be able to comment on that issue. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So, last and the final question, like, how do you see that the gender biases in
Yeah.
education system will be manifesting after the post-COVID world, in the post-COVID world, especially in West Bengal?
Okay. See, this post-COVID scenario, the COVID-19 has made education system online. In one sentence, we could say like that. So the institutionality of education, that is we are diluting that. We are somehow coming out of that. You need to have if you want to establish a school, you need to acquire a land. You need to have a library, a well functional lab. You need to have a computers. You need to have classrooms. All these things. But if you make it online, what I had mentioned in my lecture also, that if you have a near school, and you don't need the distance doesn't matter. You just if you every villages have panchayat system is there. So counselors are there. So what you can do, you can stream via TV or one single smartphone, and you just need one white, just a frame where you can stream live the classes that has been conducted in the nearest schools. So you need to just travel to that uh, ward office, just to sit there, and you just listen to what's happening there. So by this you can make the education accessible for everyone, including the girl child. Apart from that, it is so parents also find it is also an important problem that parents also find it difficult to send the child and to engage them from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., because they find it like it had if we can send the child, because they think that if we can engage our child during this hour in some other economic activity, they could have earned wages. So, and producers also find that since child labors, the wage to pay the child labor, that is very low compared to full grown labor force. So as a result of that, so you will find that if you can make it online, so if you can make the books accessible online, in that case, from that, the problem of gender bias could be reduced. Since you are not discriminating, once the live streaming is there, you cannot discriminate between a girl child and a boy child. Both of them are sitting there, both of them are listening to them. Okay, there are some problems because there are some you cannot proceed with that, because after class 10 there are some subject streams which are very high, which requires high well functional labs: chemistry, physics, biology, all these things. But below class 10 level, till below class 10 level, I think we can make the girl child educated, make the education accessible to everyone through this online system. Thank you.
Good question. So I just can't resist from asking you. So how caste system plays a very
Yeah.
significant role in gender biasness? It being the same across all the state, all the caste, the caste system in general, the Brahmin, Kshatriyas, and all.
Caste system plays a no, it is not only gender bias, it also affects the overall school enrollment, because if you see that yeah, I mean, if you go by caste system, you will it is very, the presence of gender bias is very much in s- ST group, followed by SC, then general. And if you but this part but this result, it is not that much empirically established in that sense, because the caste system, if you go to tribal areas, that system, somewhere it is patriarchal, somewhere it is matriarchal. If you go northeastern side, if you go some other tribal areas, you will find that females are more educated, female are going to schools compared to male. So from this point of view, it is not, you can just generalize it, but yeah, due to this caste system, you are basically making the education system inaccessible to everyone, not only girl, but it is to a boy also. It's typically a high caste person, high caste individual who are sending their child to school, they always find it difficult to by allowing their child to sit with the low caste boys. So that is a problem. But in this case, it is not only true for girls, it is also true for the boys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a very enriching evening. We are happy to have you in JUS webinar for the very first webinar streamed in YouTube. Looking forward to it in near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shako. Thank you.